I think they finally decided this is the way to do it. You had the millions and millions of people that died, especially in the World War I and World War II, senseless bloodlettings, and all the other wars you've had. I think that they decided this is going to work better. They came up with a warp speed vaccine, spike proteins, all that stuff. And of course, even those of us who aren't vaccinated, we have to be scared too, because we don't know what the shedding is doing, or we come in contact. We may be in much more danger from vaccinated people than they are from us.
Hey guys, Sean from SGT Report here. This is a conversation about the greatest Psyop in the history of the world, and author Donald Jeffries returns to SGT Report to lay the truth bare. Thanks so much for being here, friends. Before we start this one, just a quick word about our sponsor. Rein in wealth with a gold IRA from Noble Gold Investments. A gold IRA can fortify your own financial kingdom. Imagine the confidence that comes from a retirement backed by a tangible, proven asset. Gold, an asset that's not at the mercy of unpredictable market swings. Gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, the realm is yours to command. Fend off concerns about economic downturns and let your wealth thrive with the timeless security of precious metals. Now, past performance is no guarantee of future results, and always perform your own due diligence before making any investment decision. But this month, the first solid 1/4 ounce gold standard bullion coin ever issued with King Charles image on it can be yours with your own qualifying gold IRA or 401k rollover of $50,000 or higher. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold Investments. Call Noble Gold Investments at 877-646-5347 to get started, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's great to have you back. We really do appreciate you clicking play here today. Guys, I'm really happy to have back on the line a longtime friend and guest of SGT Report. It's author, podcaster, researcher, and friend to truth, Donald Jeffries. He's got a new book out called The Greatest Psyop in the History of the World. No, that's not it. The real name is Masking the Truth, How COVID-19 Destroyed Civil Liberties and Shut Down the World. But really, it is the greatest Psyop in the history of the world. Don Jeffries, how are you, sir?
Oh, fine. It's great to be back, Sean. And that's true. I call it that all the time. It is the greatest Psyop in the history of the world.
Guys, Donald has written so many great books: Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, Hidden History, an expose of modern crimes, conspiracies, and cover-ups in American politics. This one is one of my favorites, Donald, and look at that cover. Just look at that cover. Let's just think about the psyops there alone. 9/11, the lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald. I'm coming back to you. Let's talk a little bit about that. Don't you just love the fact when the truth that's been hidden in the shadows for decade after decade, going back to America's founding, essentially, is all being uncovered? And I want to praise Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for telling the truth about the assassination of his uncle and his father, and probably his nephew too, John F. Kennedy Jr. And by the way, let me quote from your book, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who said, and I quote, "The CDC is not an independent agency. It is a vaccine company." Don't you just love Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? And you must really appreciate the fact that the DNC, they're not going to allow the man to debate Sleepy Joe.
No, it wouldn't be a fair fight. But yeah, I mean, RFK Jr., obviously, I very much appreciate him. He has the same publisher, the same primary publisher I have, and he knows who I am. And I have lots of mutual friends. Sherry Tenpenny, who wrote the foreword to Masking the Truth, is a friend of his. And so, one would love to get him on my show or whatever and talk to him. But yeah, he's definitely talking a lot of truth. I mean, I've been studying the JFK assassination since I was a teenager in the mid-'70s, working for Mark Lane's group, Citizens Committee of Inquiry. And I never thought I'd hear a presidential candidate that comes right out and says the government killed my father and my uncle. So that takes some balls, and no other candidate's ever done that, to my knowledge.
And what I find so interesting about all of it is that everything Alex Jones has basically ever said is coming true. Like, people are starting to recognize, and it's a meme now, Alex Jones was right. And people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald J. Trump, they are the targets of this quote unquote government, but it's not really a government. What I think people are starting to understand is that we have a banana republic that is controlled by a cartel that's been controlled by the cartel going back to at least when they killed John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's my book, Crimes and Cover-Ups. I went back to the founding of the country. And certainly I've written extensively about the war between the states or the Civil War, and I believe Lincoln was the first one who really started the tyranny and so many dangerous precedents that he set. Woodrow Wilson, FDR, obviously. So it didn't start with the JFK assassination, which people reminded me after I wrote Hidden History, and that's why I ended up writing the prequel, really, which is Crimes and Cover-Ups. But you mentioned Trump, and you throw Alex Jones in as well. I mean, they both look to me like they're symbolically just going to be prosecuted over and over again, as a symbol of opposition to the state, however that is. That's what they represent. And it's basically us being prosecuted over and over again as a reminder. Certainly, the prisoners still in prison 2 years afterwards, denied all due process on January 6th. That's a reminder as well that they will brook no dissent, and they're just coming up with anything they possibly can. It was 37 charges against Trump, some some rape charge where the woman can't even remember the year. I mean, it's nonsense. Alex Jones being charged, prosecuted for 4 or 5 times now for the same crime of just questioning a widely reported event. But these are, they may throw Tucker Carlson in there as well because he's still got his issues with the woman who was like a producer for her show and I guess forced him out of Fox News. It seems like who never even met him, but yet said he were, basically was responsible for a toxic environment, basically the kind of environment that used to be in every work environment back when there was a patriarchy instead of whatever this is. And he may be constantly prosecuted as well. So it's very troubling that nobody cares. I come mostly from the left originally. I'm a classical liberal, populist and civil libertarian, and there aren't many of us left. But it's very troubling to see the legal system be twisted and distorted. It's always been corrupt and bad, but now there's no pretense about it. I mean, they're just having people prosecute exclusively based on the beliefs of somebody. It's political prosecutions. I mean, at this point, Trump is being prosecuted for something that both Biden and Mike Pence just in the last few years have done the exact same thing. Nobody else would be prosecuted for that. But it's a message, and that is that you if you have anybody that springs up that's really or legitimately or not opposing the establishment, if they're considered an opposition, we're going to take them down, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's political persecution of anybody who stands for the Republic and stands against this criminal cabal, which frankly is now fully engaged in child sex trafficking. And you must love this trans agenda push. By the way, I want to play a clip from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a second here, but I know you're writing over on Substack, donaldjeffries.substack.com, guys. Matriarchy, transgenderism, and the great cuckening. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think we're all getting sick and tired. By the way, I just saw a news item today. Starbucks is finally taking down across the nation at every single outlet, Starbucks outlet, all of their pride decorations, because I think they're getting the message from the folks that are boycotting Target and Bud Light and the North Face. It's time to send these corporations a very strong message. We're not going to tolerate this crap any longer, Don.
Oh, I mean, and here we are in the midst of Pride Month, and one of the best lines that Norm Macdonald, was a great comedian, ever came up with. He was talking about like the guy being proud of his gay son or something. He said, it's not an achievement. I mean, this is so look at this. What is this pride thing? And as Jason Whitlock, who's if you don't catch his Fearless podcast, it's one of the best ones out there. Really great. He's a black guy who's talks like a white nationalist most of the time. This guy is fearless. It's an appropriately named thing, but he's very biblical, and he talks about pride goeth before the fall, which so for Joe Biden and the rest of these clowns that are running things now in America 2.0 to be having a month devoted to pride for anybody. I mean, I don't think anybody, again, pride was originally considered one of the 7 deadly sins. And so it's not supposed to be a good quality. And it certainly isn't an achievement, as Norm Macdonald said. So the idea that they're doing this, and I've written the article you wrote about that, got a lot of attention, a lot of negative feedback too, but some women objected to it. Because I went through the history of how America, at one point was a patriarchy for a long time. At some point, they transitioned to a matriarchy. Probably, when the women's movement took hold. So probably late 70s, by the 80s, we had pretty much transitioned, I think, into the beginnings of the matriarchy. But now we're in something completely different. Transocracy, I don't know what you would even call it, but it's something unrecognizable. And it's actually at war with feminism. But when you have things happening, when you can look at these pictures of they haven't shown, thank goodness, a bunch of little boys with their scars down there, but they have shown lots of young girls who are really posing. They're underage, which would have been child pornography, I guess, if they still had their breasts. But I mean, they're posing with Frankenstein scars proudly. These huge scars across their chest, big smiles, and it's always their mother with them. I'm sorry, it's always the mother that supports this. The father may go along, but the mother is the one who buying the propaganda, the former matriarchy. They're beaming beside their daughter who's been mutilated beyond recognition, and then the doctor representing the putrid medical industrial complex, which I take to task in Masking the Truth. Worst system on earth. It can't be any worse than our so-called healthcare system. They're smiling too after breaking the Hippocratic Oath, the first do no harm. They're mutilating people. They're operating on kids who have no physical reason. There's no reason for it. They're doing it just because of a stupid agenda of propaganda and feelings, which is what, of course, all this is built on, identity politics. But it's sickening to see what's happening. And when you get to the point that I've called it out many times, when you have something where every single organ in our, that's why it's shocking to hear Starbucks, of all people, a very woke outfit, every corporation is buying into this. Chick-fil-A, is buying into it. Cracker Barrel, very conservative. They've been called racist. They just came out celebrating Pride Month. This is insane. Again, what are we proud of? What are you proud? Why are you proud of this? I mean, and why can't we all be proud? Because this isn't for all of us. This isn't a month where, straight white heterosexual males who have kids and have done a good job raising them. We, have a month devoted to being proud of that. I mean, that is kind of an accomplishment, certainly to some degree. But it's when you see these kinds of things, you realize how far we've fallen. Sean, for years I wrote that we were laboring under a tyranny that was part corruption and part incompetence. So, well, they've now mixed a third ingredient, and it's absolute insanity. The transgender movement has brought out, and that's one thing Trump really brought out. He brought the roaches out in the hat wearers, the screeching banshees, all these people that we really didn't know they were there. I mean, if they at least they weren't coming out in full view again like roaches. But you brought this out. It's sheer lunacy. If you look at some of the videos, some of these transgender marches or rallies or whatever, every one of those people look like they belong in a padded room and sound like it. I mean, it's just you're showing it there. I mean, it's just ridiculous that the idea that we now have insanity mix. So we now have corruption, incompetence, and insanity to contend with, and that's tough, man. Because we used to talk about how like even if you're a really great fighter or whatever, it's if somebody's really crazy, they can have like superhuman strength because they don't have the same kind. So it's this is a scary situation because and they've been enabled. They've all one stat I quote Sean a lot is that people don't realize that in 1955 there were more people in America that were in mental hospitals, mental health care facilities than there are now, even though the population has increased. That tells you what's going on. I don't believe necessarily in the psychiatric system. Some of these people need help. Can't just let people out. You saw what happened to the guy in the subway that was choked out by the Marine, and now he's on trial for that. Because you have people like the guy had been arrested 40 some times. He had been one of his offenses was kidnapping a 7-year-old girl, for which he served, I think, 4 years in prison, or 14 years less than the guy from the Oath Keepers just was sentenced to for protesting an election. So we're in trouble. We're just this is a really crumbling country, and the Titanic has hit the iceberg, and we're just clinging on for dear life at this point.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And you mentioned the 7 deadly sins. Pride goeth before the fall. Let me just show you something. I got to show you 2 things here as we have this conversation. So one of the other deadly sins, of course, is gluttony and greed. Can't think of a better picture that exemplifies gluttony and greed than this guy. I think he's over at the Bank for International Settlements, Augustin Carstens. One of
Wow.
the fattest, greediest, sloth-filled people I've ever seen in my life. By the way, sloth, another one of the seven deadly sins. But pride. Let's talk about pride in that word, because I can't think of anything more offensive than what folks are about to see here. I won't even sound it up, guys, but can you think of anything more offensive than this? So you got to love the fact that we live in a fallen country. It's a fallen world, by the way. It's Satan's world, obviously. And these people have fallen prey to Lucifer himself. They may not know it. They
Yeah.
may think that this is freedom, but they're actually enslaved by one of the other seven deadly sins, and that's lust. They're
Yeah.
enslaved by their lust. They're not free. And you also have to love the fact that the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence,
Yeah.
they'll mock Christ in the
Yeah.
Catholic Church,
Yes.
and Christianity, but they don't dare mock the Jews or the Islamic
Muslim.
religion or
Oh,
Muslims.
no,
They
no.
wouldn't dare, would they?
No, and that's why, again, this is I write about this a lot, is this, and I called it the Great Cuckening, because there has been they have effectively made, and I don't want to sound like a white nationalist, but that's what I end up doing a lot of times, because the white race is an endangered species. They made every single criteria for it, and they have for a long time. They're dying out. White people are not having babies because basically the propaganda I've heard all my entire lifetime was absorbed and obeyed basically by white women, primarily. You don't see Hispanics listening to it. You don't see blacks. You don't see any non-whites listening to it. They have as many kids as they want. And most of the time, they look at a pregnancy as a blessing. Only white people that look at it as a problem and say, oh, we can't afford it or whatever. Nobody else thinks about that. But again, it's because of the propaganda. And they have they've gotten to the point, and certainly with women, you showed the one big fat guy. I mean, the average woman, I think, weighs 170 some pounds now. The average American woman, which is shocking. It's what the average man weighed 60 years ago. This is, it's what they've done. They've done a job, and there's a lot of pride in that as well. It goes with the transgender thing. Sometimes you can't even tell. What's it, Willow or whatever that big fat black. I think it's a woman, but it might be a transgender. I don't know. Some kind of singer that they had walking around in a thong on the Grammys. I mean, they love to display the ugliest bodies. Like they wouldn't have a gorgeous woman walking around on stage and television. It has to be somebody like that, really, because they're celebrating ugliness for whatever reason. Because again, it's part of the dark thing. You mentioned it being satanic. This is a spiritual battle.
Mm-hmm.
Those people, when you're cutting off little girls' breasts and little boys' penises and celebrating it, and parents are celebrating it. You're supposed, as a parent, you're supposed to protect your child from harm, not take them to be harmed. And this is where we're at to celebrate. That has to come from the darkest place imaginable. That's whether I don't think those mothers are all going to black masses and celebrating, but it's satanically inspired. And
It's
certainly the display.
insidious. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
this
insidious. Well, have you heard this? In California, they're trying to pass legislation. I think it's already gotten through the House, but they want to pass legislation that will put parents, if not in prison, it will allow the state to
yes,
take the kids from the parents if the parents do not affirm a child's gender and allow surgery. This could be
right,
for an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old or a
yes,
10-year-old or a 4-year-old. That is the demonic spirit that has captured these people in the state of California. I mean, if you
right,
want to talk about the fall of this country, look no further than what's going on in California, Don. It is pits of hell, Sodom and
yeah.
Gomorrah level stuff.
Oh, I was watching. They had a video on YouTube that some guy went 30 days driving through California, showing. I mean, I don't know what the worst parts of South America look like, but they can't look any worse than that. I mean, it's absolutely shameful. People defecating in the streets and they're not even cleaning it up. Tent cities everywhere. But yeah, because California's the worst. But that obviously is an awful piece of legislation or whatever it is. But I blame. Talk about the Great Reckoning. I blame conservatives or alleged conservatives. I blame the churches. Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. That is a direct attack. They're even using the language of a direct attack on Catholicism, a direct attack on Christ, a direct attack on nuns by the very title. Where's the Catholic Church? Where are conservative priests? Are they leading marches? No, just like you don't see fundamentalist preachers. Where are the Joel Osteens, the people like that have made millions off collecting money for people? Why aren't they leading rallies out there? The transgenders are a tiny fragment of society for now, but they're growing because those young kids are absorbing this propaganda. More and more of them are transitioning as they're being told by the stupid celebrities who work for these people that it's cool. They want to be cool, so they're going to start doing it. It's risen through the roof. where are the churches? I don't see, just as you didn't see any churches in my book, Masking the Truth, I talked about first real shock to my system was when they didn't, no church protested closing on Easter Sunday. There weren't any. Where were the Martin Luther Kings and the the civil rights movement was driven through Black Baptist churches. The opposition to this should be driven through all those fundamentalist, non-denominational. Instead of holding five, potluck dinners every week or whatever, or bingo, why don't you go out and have marches? Why don't you? I mean, that awful law in California, church leaders in California and conservatives, whatever one's left out there, they should be in the streets in droves. Irate parents should be there. But this is a great reckoning. You won't see it. There's so little opposition. And once January 6th happened, you actually did have great numbers of people protesting something in Washington, D.C. And we see the way it was, way they reacted to it. And again, there was no response to the reaction. I guess people were scared, but you should have had more people even out there protesting outside the prisons. Where are the civil libertarians? They didn't. And that's the problem. Is that there's people have accepted it. They're scared. And I'm like anybody else. I'm not going to go out there unless I know there's lots and lots of people. And maybe everybody feels that way. So it's a catch-22. But there's power in numbers, and because we know what will happen to us. It's not like transgenders or Black Lives Matter or Antifa or anything like. You can burn down stores. People can be killed. If you're in Seattle, you can take over 2 blocks of a city and openly walk around with an Uzi patrolling. People can die and nobody cares. Nobody does anything. The police stand down. But just imagine if that had been, people walking around in KKK outfits or wearing swastikas or even MAGA hats. The police would have swooped down on them instantly.
Right.
And it would have been quick, and they would have called the National Guard for that. They would call for anything else. As you saw what happened, and when I criticize people like Abbott in Texas, who acts like he can't. All he can do is bus migrants around to other areas of the country. Okay, that's funny, it's entertaining, but they say, well, he can't call out the guard or whatever. Look what happened in Martha's Vineyard, and DeSantis pulled a very entertaining stunt and really exposed these people for the hypocrites we know they are. Right. When they went nuts after they were like maybe 10 migrants for 2 hours or something, they were going crazy. What happened? The governor of Massachusetts, a Republican, a rhino, instantly called out the National Guard and they were gone. Right. Now, why can't Abbott do that? Oh, he can't do it. Well, how come that guy could? So these are the questions people today. We're always told that they can't do anything or our hands are tied. No, you can. The other side always does something. They get things done. And that's, it's going to have any kind of opposition to this tyranny. We have to overcome what I call the great cuckolding. And that's what it is. They've poisoned women, obviously through toxic feminism, and you can see the result of that. They've poisoned men in terms of they've responded to it by becoming cucks and enabling the patriarchy and now whatever you call the transgender thing, because now you throw that madness into the mix. And the only place I can see any opposition forming is through churches. So people that are saying they like traditional values, they're going to churches, their pastor. Okay, well then let's start leading some marches. Let's get a bunch of those churches together and show up in the streets and say, we're not going to put up with this. Girls are girls and boys are boys. They should teach the kids you shouldn't have graphic sex books in school libraries. That's not censorship. Well, keep a book out that shows an adult male how to have sex with a little boy, which is what they do. But there's nobody effectively making that. Instead, they're just kind of weak Fox News type of opposition, especially Tucker Carlson. They're worthless. So it's just platforms like yours. That's the only thing we can get the word out here and hope that there's some courageous church leader emerges that will try to rally people around in terms of fighting for God, because this is a spiritual battle.
Well, it's a matter of survival at this point, too. And I want to flush that out a bit further in just one second. But you know who's defending those children's books that you just mentioned? Many of which have cartoon illustrations of little boys having oral sex with other little boys. Mm-hmm. Those books being banned from schools, well, that's being decried as censorship by Chelsea Clinton. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree there with the Clinton crime family, just like the Biden crime family, but it's all part of the Marxist cultural agenda, isn't it? And you and I have talked about Bill Ayers, a leader of the Weather Underground in the 60s, who then became a coach, essentially, of Barack Obama, the CIA president Obama. Barry Soetoro is his name. He happens to be married to who he lovingly calls Michael on several occasions, not Michelle, Michael. So it's all part of the Marxist cultural revolution. And if we don't stand up, we die. Because what did the Weather Underground say? They said, and you know this, when they take control of the US government and usher in their communist Marxist purge, their new way of governing, well, many of us, tens of millions of us, would have to be re educated. And those who couldn't be re educated to the new ways would have to be exterminated. I'm not making that up. That's not
Yeah.
hyperbole. They actually said that. That's what they
Yeah.
believed, Don.
Yeah, well, they do believe in it, and they, I've talked to enough people again. As I originally came from the left, I've never been a conservative. I have not now or ever been a conservative. I mean, just but because there's not what's worth conserving about this mess. I mean, this is it's 1950s, yeah, but now what is worth conserving about this? It needs to be blown up. I mean, really, and start over again because I don't know at this point if we can save it. But certainly would require lots and lots of people to do it. But yeah, I wrote all about that. Bill Ahrens and Bernadette Dorns in history and background, and certainly they've transformed from violent weather underground people to businessman of the year, whatever awards they won. It's amazing. They turn into respectable citizens. Those people are running the show now. All there's lots and have been for a long time. So when you see somebody like Bill Clinton with his background, and that's his daughter, who was I talked about in Survival of the Richest, my book. Chelsea Clinton was given, what they do, these Seons and Jenna Bush the same way. They give them positions that they don't remotely deserve. So Chelsea Clinton has been sitting on boards of directors for these big companies since she was early 20s, earning a couple $100,000 a year to attend a few meetings.
Yeah, including Vimeo, which banned SGT Report along with Patreon and YouTube and Twitter at one point, and you know how that story goes. But yeah, Chelsea Clinton sitting on the board over at Vimeo. I found
Yeah.
that out only after I got terminated without cause or warning.
Yeah, well, certainly, she probably wouldn't approve of your show, I'm sure. So, and that's again, this you look at the people, and that's what it's being, where that's playing out in the legal system now. So when you have people like if you watched that last trial of Alex Jones, I mean, it doesn't even fit the definition of it. It's worse than Lewis Carroll. Lewis Carroll, the Red Queen or whatever, running around conducting the trial and saying sentence first, verdict afterwards. That was nonsense then. That's basically what's going on now. It's basically sentence first and verdict afterwards. If you watch this was what I call a TikTok judge. You're getting more and more of these where you could just see he didn't have to have it behind her to know there was an LGBTQ flag on her social media. You knew that. She was openly hostile to Alex Jones or anybody like that when he came in. It was a mockery of justice. She told the jury he was lying several times. She told him, and again, Alex Jones, like Trump, is very questionable to the things he does. He hired some really bad attorneys, as Trump does. I don't know where they get these lawyers from, but his attorneys were no good. But apparently, they did try to establish a First Amendment defense, which is what it should be. He told them you cannot use the First Amendment as a defense. Just imagine that in an American courtroom, you can't use the most sacred right we have as Americans, the First Amendment, the right to speak and write, and express our opinion and believe what we want to believe in terms of religion, that you can't cite that as a defense or belief in. And again, there's so few people I know in our world because Alex Jones has been demonized like Trump or somebody's like Tucker Carlson, all these people. Whenever I say something about this, oh, I don't good. Well, why are you saying good? You saw it yourself, Sean, when you were one of the big scourge of when YouTube was cleaned out. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when all the subscribers you had there, and there were lots of other channels like that, but it began with Alex Jones. And people didn't care when he was deplatformed because he has so many people that hate him, even in our world. Not good. He's a big blowhard. I don't care. Well, it doesn't even matter about it. It doesn't matter if you think he's a disinfo agent or whatever. He's a WWE entertainer. It set the precedent. And you knew they were coming for the rest of us. So they went after you guys. Red Pill 78, you and lots of Dustin Demos, all these people whose shows I used to go on regularly, gone. They're all gone. And that's very disturbing. And then you can go over to, alternate outlets like Vimeo and you have Chelsea Clinton sitting on the board of directors there. So you can see how far the censorship goes. That's why I'm clinging on, for all I can to Substack and hope that because in my little way, I've been shadow banned on Facebook, I've been shadow banned on Twitter, shadow banned on YouTube. Substack so far is a free speech platform. So let's hope they don't get to that, because that's the only big platform left I know in terms of writing, anyhow, that you can do. In case you have Rumble and BitChute and everything, that you try to get the stuff Rockfin, where I have my show. But we're forced to kind of constantly go to smaller platforms because of what they're doing. As I said many times, Sean, is that the reason why it's important, people think, well, yeah, good. What do you want to be in YouTube? What do you want to be in Facebook? Well, I say, because otherwise we're preaching to the choir. How are we going to wake up? Everybody that's listening to your show is awake. So they're probably going to nod their heads to what we're saying. And we're just reinforcing what they already know. Maybe they're learning, hopefully, something new. But it's the same thing on Rumble or YouTube, whatever. When we come up with these kind of videos, people watching it are going to be people that are predisposed to be open-minded about this stuff. But if you go to YouTube, have a chance of some normie or whatever you want to call it stumbling on and saying, oh, and maybe opening their eyes a little bit. You have a chance to find someone new. Same thing with Facebook. You have a chance on somebody to say, I like what you're saying there, but not if they censor what you're saying. So that's why it's important. We can't give up the big platform. Same thing with Twitter. And Elon Musk is, he says some good things, but I tell you, my shadow ban is still there, and he hired the WEF chairperson, who's openly been advocating censorship as the new Twitter CEO, and he's come under very little fire from people for it. You don't do that. I mean, that was like Trump appointing John Bolton. I mean, it makes no sense. Why would you do that? So, this, I hate to always sound so black pilled, but I don't know about you, but at this point, I don't know how you can help being black.
Either people wake up or we get exterminated, because it's all part of the depopulation plan. So we'll turn our attention to your new book. Let me show it right here, guys. Masking the Truth: How COVID-19 Destroyed Civil Liberties and Shut Down the World. Now, it's interesting, Don, to watch people like Justin Castro Trudeau now try to backpedal and say he never tried to force the vaccine on anybody. He never shut down anything. He's not part of a lockdown. What absolute bold-faced liars these people are, all of them. And Trudeau is cut from the same cloth as Biden and Macron and Merkel and all of the other people that serve the New World Order. I would add to that Bush Sr. and the Clintons. So it's no wonder that Biden's handlers in the DNC won't allow Seditious Joe to debate this man. I wonder why. Let's listen to this.
As soon as I'm elected, and appoint my attorney general, one of the first meetings that my attorney general is going to have is to call the editors and publishers of those journals into our office, the Justice Department, where my father used to work, and tell them that we're about to file racketeering cases against them for lying to the public under antitrust acts and under fraud acts, and under RICO, which is a statute that my father wrote. And that if they don't come up with a plan as to how they are going to divorce themselves from the pharmaceutical industry, that we are going to go into their office and we're going to confiscate their files, and that we are going to prosecute them criminally, because this is just part of the big lie to the American public. They're deceiving doctors. They are harming people. They are killing Americans, and we need to make it stop.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Just a quick word about our sponsor. Did you know Bank of America is saying gold will go to $2,200 this year? An all-time high. Invest in a gold IRA with Noble Gold Investments today and take advantage of this rare opportunity to secure your retirement savings. Now remember, there's always a risk of investment and no guarantee of any kind, so do your own due diligence. But I myself own gold. With the experts at Noble Gold Investments, you can ride the wave of gold's historic rise to financial security amidst all the inflation. This month, they're offering a solid silver 5-ounce America the Beautiful coin with every qualifying precious metals IRA or 401k rollover. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold Investments. Hurry and go to noblegoldinvestments.com to secure your wealth and bag a free 5-ounce America the Beautiful coin if you qualify. noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. All right, by the way, I wanted to show you all this. Pfizer inserted cancer promoter gene SV40 into the COVID shots. So now cancers are exploding. What a shocker. Hashtag Pfizer-induced cancer. I'm coming back to you, Don. I always wondered about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his family. What were they saying to each other behind the scenes that they couldn't say publicly about the assassination of JFK and RFK? Well, now we know. At least Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is telling the truth not only about the assassination squad and the CIA's involvement in the murders of those two good men, he's talking about the COVID bioweapon masquerading as a vaccine that's also killing people. I think this is all part of the Great Awakening. It's all part of the apocalypse, which is the Great Awakening, Don.
Yeah, I mean, certainly he's been first and friend. Most people, and I write about it in my book, and he knows who I am, and he has my book, some of my books at least. And maybe I scare him a little bit. I really write about everything, and maybe he doesn't want to go to some place. There's a lot of dark places that they've killed a lot of Kennedy people. You want to see how many people they've killed, a lot more than are reported. Look at hidden history. The body count is shocking. It really is. And one of those that died, and I don't think this is an accident, that Bobby Kennedy was outspoken before, but he really went into overdrive. And I talk about it in the book a little bit when his niece, Mary, oh God, I think Megan McLean or something, she was working as she had with a global health initiative that was financed by the Gates Foundation. Job with them, very pro-vaccine. In fact, her and JFK and RFK Jr., sister and brother, took out a big ad in the paper saying, "We love our brother, but he's absolutely wrong about vaccines." Later, they would go on. One of the sisters, Carrie Kennedy, of course, was married to the odious Andrew Cuomo, so you know what kind of judgment she has. Calls him a nut and a conspiracy theorist. This Megan McLean, I'm sorry, I didn't get her name to. She died as only Kennedys can. Supposedly, her and her 8-year-old son were playing kickball off of the Chesapeake Bay, and a ball went into the Chesapeake Bay, not your local lake. So this is one of the richest families in the world, and they can't replace a kickball. So she goes out on a canoe with her 8-year-old son to retrieve a kickball, and shockingly enough, they drown, die like Kennedys do. And I find that, real entry in the Kennedy body count, which unlike the Clinton body count, Bush, Obama, whatever, is an account of them dying, not them, killing other people. But right after that, RFK Jr. really, I mean, and I have the speeches in the but unleashed on Bill Gates, unleashed on Fauci. He went really full bore, and I can't help think that they're maybe related because it was. I don't think it wasn't coincidental, but he from that moment on, he became a really perhaps the most outspoken opponent of Fauci and Gates. I mean, he was calling him out and saying things that I've been writing about. He's no holds barred. And so, yeah, he's, and I quote from him a lot in the book. It's no accident that his little statement about the CDC that you quoted earlier was the open to the first chapter. So I think that he's right because, and the book tells what differentiates Masking the Truth from all the other books. And Robert Kennedy Jr. himself wrote a great book on Fauci, The Real Anthony Fauci. My friend Naomi Wolf wrote The Bodies of Others, fine book. Peter McCullough, who I've had on my show, wrote a book about it. Alex Berenson, who was on Alex Tucker Carlson many times, has written a series of books on it. Good stuff, all. But most of these people start at what I would say point D. I started point A in the narrative. Most of them accept that something was there. There was a deadly virus. Conservatives, they believe in the lab leak theory. Something came out of China, so it's China's fault. I started at point A. And I show how from the very beginning, this thing was a farce. They still haven't produced, Sean. And I have it in the book there. There's no documentation. When people have asked for documentation of what's the isolate information, where's the documentation that you isolated COVID-19 as a strain? They can't produce it because it's never been isolated. If it's never been isolated, it's never been proven to exist. John Rappaport told me in an early interview I had with them when this first hit. That's the thing I think we need to remember. We need to, instead of starting at point D, let's look at China. Let's look at the fake people dropping dead in the streets, which we know is a joke. Let's look at the woman they've videotaped walking around supposedly spitting on doorknobs and nonsensically trying to pass it to other people. Why? Claiming they were nailing them shut inside their houses when you could see open windows right next to where they were being nailed and shut. I mean, ridiculous stuff. And then in my book, I quietly show, and I show how the Chinese media quietly admitted, after all this hysteria was drummed up, the fear porn was starting here, it's coming here. They quietly admitted that, well, yeah, we did include cases of flu and pneumonia. as COVID cases. And then Italy, it goes to Italy, even more hysteria. The whole country's quarantined. Oh my God, Italy itself has been quarantined. Thousands and thousands of people dying. Then they had the ominous photo of a row of coffins that was widely transmitted everywhere. Problem is, citizen journalists on the internet, no professional journalists, people like you and me, instantly proved that, hey, this is from 10 years. This photo is from 10 years ago, another part of the world, completely unrelated. Didn't matter. They kept putting out that disinformation. And again, quietly, the Italian media, I have the source in my book, admitted at the end of it, well, actually 99% of these people were old people and they died of something else. All false. Comes to New York. Same kind of thing. They've had to revamp those cases before they started talking about all the bodies overflowing. They couldn't bury lies upon lies, as I point out in the book. I interviewed Jason Goodman on my show. I interviewed Citizen Richard, who's even better and running these people in hospitals about the empty hospitals. The empty hospital videos were real. They did film these places looking like ghost towns, but on the same time, the same day that media was reporting they were overflowing, they couldn't fit all the patients in there, and they had refrigerated trucks. And again, citizen journalists went to the refrigerated trucks as close as they could get, zoomed in on them. Every one of them were in the off position. They were telling you, oh, they've had some bodies in there for a year. Absolute lies, monstrous lies. Greatest psyop of all time. And then you have the dancing nurses. Nobody talks about the dancing nurses but me. Worked in a hospital as a young guy. It's incomprehensible that you would have 10, 12 nurses ever. Where would you film that in a hospital? The hospital administration wouldn't allow that. What were the patients doing while you're doing that? Well choreographed routines. It's not only not questioned, they're celebrated on the Today Show. I talk about all that. Those are all part of the equation. And the other books don't talk about it. No one else is talking about that because that is what adds up to the greatest psyop of all time. It doesn't add up to a mistake that maybe some people lied. Fauci lied about the lab leak theory. And that it was all, no, because whatever leaked out, the bioweapon is not COVID. That's what my point is in the book. Bioweapon was the vaccine. That's what people need to realize. And that's part two of the story. And that's where Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Abraham Lincoln, a lot of people come in and have done great work showing how dangerous the vaccine is, how, the horrible effects it's had. We certainly all know the death rate increased by 40%, which is apocalyptic. And that's a number that it's incomprehensible. As people in the industry say, if it went up 5%, this would be earth-shattering. 40%, they haven't explained that. And as Peter McCullough said on my show when I had him on, there's only one thing that's been added to the equation, and that's the warp speed. This is all, but it adds up to the greatest psyop in the history of the world.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'll take a picture of what's on my desk right beside me here. It's a stack of books, the top of which is Edward Dowd's Cause Unknown, 40% rise in all-cause mortality globally. And it's actually higher than that. And his book documents so many of these young people that were taken suddenly because they acquiesced and took this bioweapon masquerading as a vaccine. Guess what the book is right below that? Hidden History by Don Jeffries. Below that, my friend Marty Leeds' book, Lord Jesus Christ. Then below that, Future Esoteric by Brad Olson. And then one of my favorites, Logos Rising, from E. Michael Jones, who dares to tell the truth about those who control us. They're the ones we can never criticize or speak about, lest we get banned from all sorts of different platforms. Right. I want to ask your opinion on something very important here. It's the shedding issue. It's moving forward. Let me just play this clip. It's about a minute long. Shedding is Real by Dr. Paul Merrick. This is really scary, and I'm begging God, I'm praying to God, dear God and Lord Jesus Christ, we pray for your protection and healing for all of your faithful who have stood against and who continue to stand against this satanic vax depopulation agenda. Listen to this.
There is no question that shedding is a real thing. So what we do know, and this may be horrific, is that, autopsy series have shown that the amount of spike protein after vaccination in spermatozoa is truly astonishing. So that vaccinated men that have sex with their partner who are unvaccinated can transfer spike protein. And we know of women who've had relations with their partner and have developed symptoms of spike disease. So that can happen, and it does happen. The other way is that people who recently vaccinated exhale what are called exosomes, And these exosomes are like lipid nanoparticles with spike protein. So that if you are in close-ish contact, and this doesn't have to be close physical, it doesn't have to be, intimate contact. It can be, reasonable proximity to someone who's recently been vaccinated. You can inhale these exosomes and be spiked. So this is a real phenomenon. Unfortunately, nobody wants to study it or publish data on it. So, most of the cases we know about are anecdotal, but it does happen.
All right, I'm coming back to my guest, author Don Jeffries. I wanted to ask you something just regarding that. I want your comment. If you consider the fact that patents were filed by, I think, Moderna and Pfizer, I think, and others, maybe the World Health Organization, the CDC. By the way, we can talk about the World Health Organization's total takeover, which I think is scheduled to occur next July. But the question that needs to be asked is, how long has this depopulation plan and the research been ongoing? Because it all reminds me of Dr. Rima Lebo on that Jesse Ventura conspiracy show that in, I think, 2010, 2011, she was interviewed at an airport. She wanted to get in the country, do the interview, and get right back out because she's so terrified of being in this country. Dr. Rima Lebo told Jesse Ventura, the great culling has begun. She was told that circa 2002, 2003 by somebody she called a high-level elite with whom she had contact. The great culling has begun. Well, here we sit, Don. How long have they been concocting this depop plan? This is just astounding.
Well, I go down to the bottom of the rabbit hole. I believe that eugenicism was born with evolution. I don't believe in evolution, and more people are not believing in it. And because the whole concept, I wrote a book, Survival of the Richest, which is a play on words of the survival of the fittest, because once they established something called the fittest, that by definition meant that there were people who were unfit. And that's where you first started having Woodrow Wilson, one of the first great eugenicists, in 1911, 1912, established the first forced sterilization program as when he was governor of New Jersey. And it was out. You had people like all the way through FDR, all these people that from the very beginning, Clarence Darrow, the great attorney, all the way through what you see now with Bill Gates, probably the foremost eugenicist in the world. They put on the record. Bill Gates has been caught many times drooling with delight, talking about millions of people dying. The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich, a famous book. That guy's still alive, amazingly, very old, but there's constantly stressing the theme. There's too many people. More importantly, there's too many unfit people. When Henry Kissinger just turned 100, let's all congratulate him. First obese 100-year-old in the history of the world. He talked about useless eaters, and that's what they look at most people as. They look at us as the unwanted, and they don't think we're fit to live. And Alex Jones is right. Alex Jones has been talking a long time about how ultimately if in their most unguarded moments, they believe human beings just are a scourge of the earth. They believe we're a virus. And they do want to merge with AI. That's why they're pushing that, because they don't have any spirituality. They don't believe that there's a reward from God, and they'll go to a reward in heaven. They want to achieve immortality here by merging with AI technology. He's been talking about that and certainly looking more and more right on target as we go along. But this message is out there everywhere. Prince Philip, the guy that lived to be 100 or whatever, talking about you can come back reincarnated as anything. 2 different occasions. He asked you if you can come back as be reincarnated as anything. The last thing any sane, rational, normal human being would do is say, I want to come back as a virus and kill millions of people. Prince Philip said that twice. So many of these other people, Ted Turner, Jacques Cousteau, obviously Bill Gates many times, they're all on the record. They're all eugenicists, and I don't think it's any accident. The Georgia Guidestones, which kind of showed up out of nowhere in the 80s or whatever it was, and they had one of the things on there, we're talking, I think, bringing the population of Earth down to 500,000 or something ridiculous like that. A lot of people had to die to do that. That was blown up and destroyed. Was it last year or in the midst of the COVID narrative? I don't think it's an accident that it happened then, and they somehow don't seem interested in. I mean, video cameras everywhere. They should be able to see who did that. I think that was a symbolic gesture. And, this is an ongoing. I think they finally decided this is the way to do it. You had the millions and millions of people that died, especially in the World War I and World War II, senseless bloodlettings, and all the other wars you've had. I think that they decided this is going to work better. They came up with a warp speed vaccine, spike proteins, all that stuff. And of course, even those of us who aren't vaccinated, we have to be scared too, because we don't know what the shedding is doing, or we come in contact. We may be in much more danger from vaccinated people than they are from us. But 40% rise in the death rate. We don't know how many people have died. And if what people like that, and my friend Jeff Rentz, who has me on the show every Monday, a lot of these people believe that all the vaccinated people will eventually die within a few years. So it's going to be impossible to hide at some point, because people are going to look around and notice, wow, where did all the people go? Like a Twilight Zone episode. And I don't know. I certainly hope that doesn't happen, but this has been their goal. So the idea, again, of evolution is to have the fit survive. So if you're not fit, you die. And no one, because they don't believe in God, so they're not going to feel any empathy or any concern for people. And I think there's no accident Bill Gates has spent so long, pushing vaccines in Africa and elsewhere. And one thing, show how planned this is. And I go through the history of these drills that they held going back to Dark Winter in 2001. And it's no accident that when Joe Biden stumbled into the presidency and is walking around shaking hands with the empty air, that he started babbling. Obviously, he was directed to babble about it's going to be a dark winter during her first winter in office. They do these kinds of things as kind of an inside joke to people like us that might know what they're talking about. I guess it's some kind of entertainment for them. But the first episode, Tabletop Exercise 2001, they called it Dark Winter. And it was for people like Gates, the World Health Organization, CDC, World Economic Forum, all the usual suspects getting together and having a simulation. What would happen if a deadly virus came out of China? It's always out of China. How would we develop a vaccine to contend with it? You had 6 or 7 other of those episodes over the years leading up to Agenda 201, which was October 2019, right before the pandemic broke. And right after Dr. Kerry Mullis died, very conveniently, the guy that invented the PCR test, and told everybody, hey, this is worthless. You can get any result you want from it. And yet that's the foundation of this narrative of the greatest psyop of all time. The foundation is the PCR test, gives you at least a 90% false positive rate. And this is what everybody has been building. This is what the fear porn is built on, the home test. All the people, the things that took the lives of people like my brother, because he was a hypochondriac and he got in the hospital. And that's another aspect of the hospital, the protocol that kills. I've had several people on my show that went through what I did. My brother or hospitals, just we don't know how many people. That may have been millions as well, who went in for other reasons. You give them this fake test, claim they're false positive. No, they're asymptomatic, which that's an Orwellian term, which means not sick. And it's become mainstream now, so people parrot it around, asymptomatic, so you weren't sick. I mean, you're asymptomatic. I mean, they just say these things because they're trained to, they regurgitate what people like Fauci and them are saying, but we have no idea how many people have died from that. But the bottom line is they appear to be succeeding in lowering the Earth's population. And certainly if you look at the United States, I think it was last year for the first time in recorded history, you had four states, at least 4 states, that recorded more deaths than births. Never happened before. And you're going to see it continue to happen. And again, people should be questioning it, but you can't reason with them, and they'll just attribute it to COVID somehow. And it's frustrating. It really is.
Don, you inspire us in so many different ways. Your work is legion. I can't recommend the new book enough. We're going to do a screen share about that in just one last second here, but I want to do a couple more screen shares before we part ways. And one of the things I want to share here is one of the servants of Satan and somebody who was dedicated to the New World Order, George Bush Sr. You just mentioned Biden mumbling about the dark winter that was coming. I don't think there's a better example of the nefariousness of these people right in the wide open than this. This is George Bush Sr. smirking about the JFK lone gunman theory at Jerry Ford's funeral.
After a deluded gunman assassinated...
That's so funny. Watch again. He's so amused by that concept.
After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy...
Yeah, we know who assassinated President Kennedy now, you piece of filth. All right, guys, I don't think... Oh, and by the way, before I show this clip, because this just came up, 2 last screen shares, which 100% completely embody the ongoing battle for the soul of the republic of our nation. Are you guys ready for this? 2 back-to-back tweets, which just came into my feed by coincidence, which I think perfectly sum up this conversation Don and I just had. I'll play these in 1 second. But one last thing I should just ask you about, just briefly before we part ways. The last card. Wernher von Braun warned Carol Rosen, his assistant, for 4 years. The last card they will play is the alien card. And now I really see this alien invasion, Project Bluebeam, coming into fruition here. It's all over the news, that Las Vegas backyard crash UFO with 10-foot, aliens, whatever. The alien invasion, Wernher von Braun said the last card is the alien card, and it will all be fake. I wonder how close we are to that card being played, Don.
It looks like certainly looks like they've kind of thrown us these curves before, where you thought I've been talking about it for a long time. And I as a young guy, second only to the JFK assassination, in the area of interest for me as a teenager was UFOs and Bermuda Triangle, Fortean phenomenon. So I'm very well versed in the literature, and it wasn't until I read the books of John Keel where I started realizing, well, it doesn't make sense for it to be alien life forms. I began to see that this is some kind of psyop itself, that either it's a secret government experiment or maybe some kind of interdimensional thing or even time travel, perhaps. But it's not what they're portraying it as. And we've known about Project Bluebeam for a long time. And you can see, just imagine what the people fell for the greatest psyop in the history of the world, COVID. Well, this, I guess, would be the new greatest psyop in the history of the world. They could convince people that. But I don't have any confidence. The most disillusioning thing in my life has been to see how outnumbered we are from the COVID thing. To see all the people walking around in their masks and obeying these absurd protocols that don't make any sense, driving in their cars by themselves with masks on. So I don't have any doubt that if they claim the aliens come, again, we may be locked up as conspiracy theorists. They're going to demonize us for saying that it's fake, just like they demonized whether it's Sandy Hook or Boston bombing or anything you say. That's why I avoided saying that COVID is a hoax, because that's a triggering word now. Well, the psyop, they seem to accept that a little better, but this is what we're looking at. I don't know if they're actually going to do it, but yeah, the thing in Las Vegas with the giant, it's not like they've had those kinds of encounters in the past where people have described meeting, strange looking aliens or more often human looking aliens, supposedly. So these things are close encounters. They did a movie called Close Encounters that happened over the decades, but it does seem to be coming out of the closet now, and it would fit. Maybe they think it's a perfect moment because they've just come off fooling the public like never before with COVID. So why not try this? I have very little confidence that probably the same people like us that doubted the COVID psyop will doubt this. Television's going to report it. Hollywood will report it, and all the major politicians. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene will tweet something about it and be criticized for it, but I don't have much hope. If they want to do it, basically, they can do it.
Yeah, and we'll report about all of it. We're going to wake the people up. You know what? I don't think they'll get away with it. They might, but I don't think they're going to get away with it because they didn't get away with their plandemic. Nobody's taken the boosters. This whole vax thing is sort of withering on the vine. So I do wonder if the last card, the alien card, won't be played soon. All right, guys, one last screen share. And as you watch this first clip, just realize that the second clip, I think, embodies the conversation that Don and I just had. This is the battle for the soul of our republic. And as you guys watch this, think about the demoralization campaign. And by the way, Don, it just finally occurred to me, when I think about being demoralized, I think about like having your hope drummed out of you, having your willingness to fight being drummed out of you. No, what a demoralization campaign is in this case is to take the morals out of our nation, to demoralize our youth. Think about the battle for the soul of our country, guys, in this clip, and then I'll play the next one, which is much more hopeful. By the way, also think about the disrespect for the office of the president, for this to be happening on the lawn right outside the White House.
Welcome to the White House.
Thank you.
Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Year. Happy Pride Life.
Yeah!
Transgender children.
You are beautiful.
You are heard.
You belong.
You are understood.
You are loved.
And you belong. Some of the bravest and most inspiring people I've ever known. And
you're welcome.
Good folks.
Can we take a little video? Hi, Mr. President. It is an honor. Trans rights are human rights. Oh, it's a video. Oh, it's a video.
The monument's in the back, right?
Gay news.
Are we topless at the White?
Okay, that's the part I wanted to get to. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So
Wow.
when they steal an election and it's a Marxist cultural revolution, this is what you get on the White House lawn. Now, I want everybody to compare and contrast that against this clip down in Miami right now, where Trump is supposed to show up for his arraignment because the deep state wants to put him in prison for 400 plus years. I'll pause it there. You know, Don, I'm not saying that Donald J. Trump is our savior. What I'm saying is 75 million real Americans voted for the guy, and 81 million fake votes turned out for this guy. And now here's what we get in Biden's America. It's a complete and total disgrace.
It really is. You juxtapose those two images against each other, and really the Trump rally is like the last vestiges of America 1.0. And the Biden White House extravaganza, that's the new America. That's what's taken over. That's the woke monstrosity. That's America 2.0. And that's why, Marjorie Taylor Greene was right. We have to have a divorce. I don't know how we can have it because we tried secession. They tried secession back in 1860, and the federal government killed almost 1 million people to tell them, no, you don't have a right to consent to the government, which is why we fought a war for independence. So they're not going to let us go. We're not going to miss them, but I don't think they're going to let people go. I don't know how, but it's becoming more and more apparent. We don't have a single foundational issue at all that we agree on. We're living completely different worlds, and I'm fine to let them do whatever they want. Go on there, but stop poisoning us, stop poisoning our environment, and let us have some semblance of sanity. But I don't know how we're going to do that because I don't think they're going to let us, and I don't think we have enough leadership. Besides Trump, who may end up in prison, who knows? But I mean, there's so few other people that really are seen as a leadership of the opposition. There's not enough Republicans. Most of them are rhinos. And again, when I talk about the church leaders, that's where the church has to fill the breach here. They should be front and center and saying, let's get back to normalcy or something, get a line from Warren Harding or something. That was really unsettling videos because it just shows you it's like you're on two different planets looking at those events.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I guess if there's any good news, my friend, it's that people are waking up. The Great Awakening is real. And, my audience, as you know, is very supportive. I hope folks will go out and buy your book. It's only $20 in paperback. Is Barnes & Noble the best place to get it? I certainly think that's better than Amazon, which probably also carries it.
Sure. Well, the only reason I promote Amazon at all is because Amazon has the rating system and they put the numbers up there, and most people are followers. So it's kind of a catch-22 because I don't like to support Amazon, but if they see they'll look at the sales rankings on Amazon, and if they're good, people put reviews and ratings up there, which you can do it on Barnes & Noble, but hardly anybody does. If they notice, like Hidden History continues to sell better than all my other books because it has like 600 and some ratings, which is really good. But some of my other books don't have near that many. So people are followers. They'll look at it and they may be drawn to this book if they see numbers up top there. That's what I'm hoping on anyhow. And I think, again, if there's no, like in all my books, I don't have any theory. I'm not theorizing anything. So people call me conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst, like Gore Vidal said. All this is factual. It goes right from the very beginning. Everything is sourced. So people can buy it. If you buy it, I'm grateful wherever you buy it. So you can still buy it from the publisher it's on my Substack as well. I get a bigger cut of it if you buy it from there, but I don't care. As long as it gets out there, it's suggested to your libraries. There will be some that will be courageous enough to stock it if they hear from enough people. So people can, anybody that supports me by buying my book, I don't care. I'm not going to quibble over the details.
Well, we appreciate that. I want to show one more thing here too. Guys, here's the Substack, donaldjeffries.substack.com. I protest. Don, I've told my wife if God gave me one wish, if I could be granted one wish by God himself, it would not be to be a multi-billionaire like, Bezos or Elon Musk. It would be for God to cure loneliness on this planet. I think if loneliness could be cured, that would really help humanity more than just about anything else. Don, we really do appreciate you, and I'll leave the links below. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure, Sean. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, friends. And again, support the author, the new book, Masking the Truth, How COVID-19 Destroyed Civil Liberties and Shut Down the World. The link is below. And friends, I'll remind you every single day, check us out for free, won't you? At 3 of our websites, thephaser.com, thelibertymill.com, and of course, sgtreport.com. Those are all antidotes to corporate propaganda and Mockingbird mainstream media CIA lies. May God bless you and yours, friends. Bye-bye.
So in the post-flood world, you get more giants, and these giants have basically been continuing the war against mankind, all colors of mankind, ever since. They believe that we're less than animals to them. They want to wipe us out or enslave us. They want to outlaw Christianity. They hate God because they are damned from birth, because they're not made in God's image. And they run the deep state. I know all of that sounds nutty, but I can prove it all. They have taken over in 2 generations, and now look at us. All of this evil didn't just come out of nowhere. It's being pushed on us by the children of Satan, literal children of Satan, the actual genetic descendants of fallen angels. They're not human.